And welcome back. Sorry I'm a little late on this. I was going to do the video earlier, but things happen. But we're here now. Obviously, I came back last night from the Eternals. I saw it with my girlfriend. She doesn't like to be on camera, so I just waited today. I'm never going to force her to be on camera if she doesn't want to be. Would never do that to anyone, let alone my girlfriend. Now that we got that out of the way, Eternals. This is the newest Marvel film, and it is the most different Marvel film, probably from their entire roster to date. Now, every Marvel film is a little different from each other, but they generally feel like a Marvel film. Ant-Man's a heist film, but it feels like it's set in the Marvel Universe. Shang-Chi is a wushu martial arts film, but it still feels like it is set within the Marvel Universe. Captain America's are usually kind of like spy-based to some degree, especially Winter Soldier's like 80s spy thriller, but still feels in the MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm just thinking of a couple other ones off the top of my head. Guardians of the Galaxy, especially the first one. I'm just going over everything in my head real quick. Does anything else feel different on some level? Or is different on some level? I mean, Thor Ragnarok's drastically different than Dark World's is drastically different from the other Thor. They all have their own tone. Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming, in Far From, they still feel like in the MCU, but they are different films from each other. This is the first one that doesn't until you get maybe to the third act, and like you get the references here or there to other characters. Until you get to the third act, this doesn't feel like it's in the MCU very much. This has a completely different tone. The plot is, as you kind of see in the trailer a little bit, that the Eternals, Cersei, Icarus, Athena, Ajax, Kingo, Sprite, Phasmos, Makari, Droog, and Gilgamesh. They are sent by the Celestials to help the advancement of humanity and protect them from the deviants. And this story takes place over thousands of years. They've been there for 7,000 years. And they've grown, they've had lives, they've had loves, they've had love losses, and now something called the Emergence is happening, and we got to get the band back together. We're on a mission from Celestials. That would be great. Hey, whoever does the online stuff for those parodies, do it. Because it is kind of the Blues Brothers got to get the band back together a little bit. Now, what is the Emergence? Who's the ultimate villain of the movie? Like all of this stuff. Well, I can't really go into any of that, obviously. I will say that there are things that you can see coming and things you don't necessarily see. There are twists in this film. Like who their antagonist is, for example, who the one they're up against is. What is the Emergence? Who are the Eternals really? I will say I've heard some people complaining about this, that, here or there, all that. And I will be honest, while I can generally say I really admire this movie, and I really overall like the movie, I would go so far as to say I may arguably love this. Definitely is probably in my upper half of the Marvel films, almost certainly. MCU, that is. While there is that, I can completely understand. Now, granted, 50% rotten critically. I don't want to be one of those people who tries to make excuses for why people didn't like a film. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. That's all good. 50%, though, that is jarring. That's jarring. And I think part of it is this is such a radically different film that it is jarring to go with that term. For someone who's used to this Marvel fare being somewhat different from each other, but still having that tone like it's in this universe, to having this film, which is shot and told very different from normal MCU fare. I think that's very jarring for some people. It worked for me because I was aware it was something very different, and it felt different, and I really liked the fact that it felt different. But that said, you're dealing with a lot of time. You're dealing with creationism in this film. Like everything else, I've heard about best. Everything else kind of, since everything else, including like Endgame, Infinity War, now kind of seems small when you introduce things like the TVA from Loki. You introduce possible Nexus beings, Scarlet Witch who can warp reality. celestials who literally created the universe. And that's been said already in non-spoiler reviews. It's even pretty much implied in the trailers. That's not big spoilers. Arishem, who voiced Arishem? Because we actually get he's not like a main character, although his presence is very much felt, as well as we do see him from time to time. It's not just that he shows up for one or two scenes. No, he is a presence felt throughout the movie, and he does have more than one or two scenes. Like Arishem, I can't say too much about Arishem, but he does play an important factor in this film. Arishem is actually a very important figure in this film, to the point where, who voiced him though? Because I thought I recognized the voice. David Kaye. Who is David Kaye? I know that name. What else has he done? Done a lot of animation. Holy crap. What films have I seen him in here? Barbie. Okay. Mostly just animated stuff. Okay. I mean, live action. Here we go. Okay, so I haven't really seen him in anything. He's been in Battlestar Galactica, but he's a pretty prominent voice actor. But you know what? Good for him. I'm sure I've recognized that voice before. But still, who voiced the Deviant? Let's see here. The Deviant, villager, appears in the background. Was Patton Oswalt's voice for a character who appears in a post-credit scene? I'll leave it at that. It was him! Okay, I'm not saying anything. All I will say is there's the mid-credit scene and there's a post-credit scene. Stay for both. Both have major impact on the entirety of the MCU. But in the post-credit scene, we get something with Kit Harington's character, which is setting up for his character, who is a prominent character in the Marvel. Like, he's a new character coming in. But then there's someone else in that scene who we don't see, but we hear. And I turn to my girlfriend, I'm like, is that who I think that was? Because there's a reason I'm like, is that who I think that was? Okay, all right. The Deviant was voiced by Bill Skarsgård. That's why I recognized it. All right. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of people show up, and like I said, the mid and post credit scene set a lot up. Like who? But look, I'm already 7 minutes in. I barely talked about them. I've talked a bit about the movie. I thought actually all the characters were very well portrayed. I heard someone say that Angelina Jolie is kind of sleepwalking through the movie, and if any of them are, actor and actress wise, I'll admit she does kind of look like the one who's maybe not giving her entire effort. But I do think that's partly because of the type of character she has. She is the stern warrior, and she is she's depicted with like a form of, I guess, eternal dementia, if you will. But it's actually very interesting to see how that kind of plays out, and how her relationship with one of the other Eternals, Gilgamesh, who's kind of like helps her out, how that portrays mental health relationships with people who have something like dementia or Alzheimer's, or who go. So I liked actually how it's depicted. Where is the name of the actor who played Phastos? Yeah, Phastos. Brian Tyree Henry plays Phastos. He's depicting our first gay superhero. And you know what? He was the character my girlfriend really gravitated to. There's a scene, and you see it in the trailer, so I can talk about, where, because he's their inventor, their tech guy. He's the one who's inventing things. There's a great scene about him inventing a steam engine a couple thousand years too early. He's like, it's probably going to scare them. All right, they're stupid. Here's a plow. You plow things with it. But then we see him at Hiroshima, or Hiroshima, depending on the actual pronunciation. And he's broken about the fact that he helped them advance so much that they were able to do this now, where they can wipe each other out. And this is his doing. And he can't. It is so beautiful. Like, characters like Phastos, like Sprite, Lila McHugh, like Gemma Chan, sorry. Richard Matt, like all these characters, they're all doing so well. Portraying these people who have been with us for so long and seen us rise, fall, show them the good, the bad, the ugly. But Selma Hayek is a great line. Like, I've seen a lot of bad stuff over time, but I've seen them do terrible things. But I've also seen them laugh, love, create beautiful things, overcome adversity. You hear that line in the trailer. The people brought everyone back with a snap of their finger. Like, you can hear like the admiration that many of these characters, particularly like Gemma Chan, Selma Hayek, Brian Tyree Henry, these characters have for the human race. But then you get like the other characters who are less invested, I guess is the best way to put it, with the human race, like Barry Keoghan, who plays Droog, who's the mind control one. They all have their own ability. Richard Madden, Icarus, like again, Angelina Jolie, Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh isn't like against humans or anything. He just particularly takes care of Angelina Jolie. Sorry, I'm just getting some water. My girlfriend wants some cashews in here, so I've been kind of munching on them. Once in a while, especially if you know what happens when you eat nuts, you'll get one like and kind of just lodge or something to wash it down. So yeah, I really like what they do with all these characters. They made, I think, all of them. I think they made likable in their own way. Kamal Nanjiani stole the scenes. He just stole them. He has this little valet played by Harish Patel. It's just awesome. They're just gold. Anytime they're on screen, they're gold. Oh, I love them so much. The effects work. Now, I've heard there was one scene in the last third of the movie that's some of the worst CGI in recent time. And if it's the scene I'm thinking of, I don't know if it was the worst, but I mean, it was pretty obvious CGI. Like, oh man, it was actually pretty bad. But really, the thing that I believe it hinders the movie in some level is I do think for the MCU, and unfortunately the audience rating, in fact, what's the audience rating right now? That's a good question. The audience rating is far exceeding the critical rating, and thank God for that, because that's really where the dollars go. It's the people who ultimately go to pay to see the movie. Is it great that critics, can form an opinion where, people can judge based off that? Yeah. But ultimately, it's the audience who decides. Case in point, the first Venom made $860 million when only about a third of the critics liked it. Right now, 86% of the audiences really like the Eternals. And you know what? Great for it. And those are verified audience members. But I think it is a bit high concept. It's taking the MCU to the next level. I'm not going to say anything about the Celestials, but I think they're going to change Galactus up a little bit to maybe be like a rogue Celestial. And I'm going to leave it at that. Because there's something about the Celestials we learn that would tie into Galactus's motif and what he does. Now, that's just a theory. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I get I don't feel bad in speculating that they might do that. We'll see. But I think one of the big things is that, again, for me anyway, the deviants are just throwaway fodder antagonists. You get the one deviant, I believe Crow is his name, who, without saying what's going on with him, is changing and evolving throughout the movie. But even then, it's just like, okay, you're not the main threat, kind of. You are the threat, and yet you're not. Again, without going into too much spoilers, the emergence I'll put it this way. He's not the main threat. The emergence is the main threat, whatever the emergence may be. For anyone who knows the comics, you'll know what the emergence ultimately is. But all the other ones, I mean, they're cool designs. They are cool designs. I love these dinosaur melded with like a bear or a wolf or like a griffin kind of one, a snake, lizard. They are cool designs. I like the designs. They belong kind of more on Pandora than they do in the Marvel MCU, but whatever. They're cool designs. However, except for the one, none of them are the Black Order. they're technically fodder, but they're fodder with personality and purpose. And these guys are just there to get the shit kicked out of them ultimately. So it's kind of unfortunate, but yeah, I think that's a real weak part of the film. Another thing is, while I didn't really feel the length, I noticed it. I was like, wow, we're still here at this point in the story, and we haven't even like gotten to this point in the story where we know where we need to be. Like, they're really taking their time with this. Now that can be a good thing, or that can be a bad thing. For me, I like that. Because I'm digging these characters, I'm digging these relationships, but it's still unfortunately something that I can see not every audience getting along with. Ultimately, I keep saying ultimately, but ultimately, I still very much like this film. I don't know if I loved the film. Like, there are Marvel films that when you watch it, you loved them. I love Iron Man. I love Avengers. Love Winter Soldier, Civil War. Love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2. I love Age of Ultron. I love every one of the Avengers. I love them. This one I really liked. But just like Shang-Chi, which I also really liked. I really liked Shang-Chi. I only saw it the one time. And I think part of that is also, money, time, all that. I got to see more movies throughout the year, so I can't always just go back for a repeat viewing. But also, it's like, yeah, no, I think I'll just go with just the first showing. I think I got everything I needed to out of there. And, man, again, those two post-credit scenes, the mid and post-credit scene, man, whoo! Hell, I was just excited for what we were getting with Kit Harington's character from the post-credit scene. But when the thing at the very end happens, I'm like, oh! I'm like, oh, why are you teasing me? Why are you teasing me like this? Come on, Marvel. Why you gotta do this? You know just a spot to tease me. And then that mid-credit scene too, I'm like, oh, this is fun. Because I'm like, because when a character appears, voiced by Patton Oswalt, I did already mention that. That's all I'm saying. I'm like, I know this character. I can't remember his name. I know it. It's like, wait, then who else is showing up? It's like, oh, we're getting this person now. Okay, this should be good. So anyway, yeah, I you know what? That's one other thing, because the mid-credit scene and at the post-credit scene are actually very vital to the end, because the end of the movie does seem to actually just stop. Like, it just stops. Not gonna say what happens exactly, but you basically hold on an image, but it's not an image that feels like it stops. It feels like, oh, okay, that just stopped, and then we get the mid and post credit scene, and it's continuing off it, so it does feel more like an end to this film than it does that initial ending. Because if you didn't have those post and mid credit scenes, I'll admit that would feel like an abrupt ending, even more abrupt than Dune's ending was. But Dune at least had the wherewithal to name it Part 1. Anyway, I still really like the movie. I really appreciate what they were going for. My girlfriend did mention, she's like, I wasn't following some of what they were saying. I'm a big comic nerd, so I knew a lot of what they were talking about, but I can understand someone who's not getting it as much. So that could be another problem and hindrance of the film. Let's see ultimately where this film winds up. We know it will be number one this weekend. That's a given. It's already made $7.6 million opening night, which is probably going to be more than even Dune makes in its weekend this weekend, its third weekend. But we'll see where it closes out this weekend for its opening weekend. Until then, thank you for watching, though. Hope you enjoyed. What do you think of the film? Put in the comments below. Let me know. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow for the next new What If. So until then, see you later.